Devin Jenkins, how you doing, my man?
What's good, bro? How's it going? Good to see
I'm
you.
yeah, absolutely, man. Always great to catch up with you. I know you're a tactician of the sport. You're always studying. Let's talk about Road to the Title 3. You just wrapped up. We've got 11 episodes. I know you got to know these guys incredibly well, being there, as part of the cast. Talking about the season as a whole and kind of how the sport has progressed from the videos that you've seen, Road to the Title 1, 2, 2, 3, where we're at now, and the level that these guys are bringing both on the offense and the defense to the table.
Well, one thing I can say from season 1 to season 3 is the locations definitely have gotten much better. The Fontaine LeBleu, man, that thing that is a sweet place. Um, as far as like technique wise, from season 1 to season 3, seeing some solid strikers out there on solid defense. Usually, like now, I'm getting to the point of being able to spot the technique and being like, all right, man, I kind of know how this one's going to go now. And I started kind of naming the strikes that I was seeing. So like I would see like some of the strikers are doing more like a downward strike, like they're coming across and kind of pulling down. So I've been calling that like the Charlie Murphy, right? When I see people with with the Rick James, he said unity.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking more like there's some that are more of like a Charlie Murphy, and there's some that are more like a straight cross, right? All they're trying to do is take that arm and go straight across the jaw.
Yeah.
Right. So I've been studying up on the game, and like I said, to wrap up season 3, I think that there could definitely be some work done on both ends, offensively and defensively. I thought that there was a lot of missed calls, maybe some foul calls, some clubbing calls, some stepping calls. But yeah, I guess they're a little more lenient when it comes to the show as opposed to, when you're on the stage, big competition.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to see again. We've always talked about experience, versus kind of the youth coming in. And it's heavily favored, the OGs, the experienced guys for Road to the Title season 2 had a substantial advantage in the live event. At the amount of, victories that came out of it. We're going to see here Abu Dhabi. We've got some new guys coming in, some guys that are going to be paired up against each other. We're going to have some of the new guys going up against some of the OGs. So we're going to see how that goes. We also had Darius the Destroyer, in your weight class. And then we've got newcomers like Pono Paul and James Seekman. How do you think these two guys who we just seen, compete against each other? Obviously, Pono with his left hand, not his right. But how do you think these guys will stack up against a guy like Darius and some of these guys, potentially in the top 5?
Honestly, when it comes to like the veteran experience, they may have done well on the show. I even got once or twice, you know what I'm saying? But when it comes to facing the veteran guys, I think they're going to see that there's definitely a difference in experience. I did see a solid battle between, Seekman and Pono. But to me, also the offhand thing, it's not really like everybody's like, oh, the offhand. But to me, it's like when it comes to training, you're trying to train the unit as a whole. There's not really an offhand or on hand. Like if I do 4 strikes with my right hand, then I'm going to do 4 strikes with my left hand. Now, the more you practice it, you gain more accuracy and power. But if you're not, of course, you're going to have, a weak non-dominant side. But in sports, that's not something really you can afford. You know what I mean? You can't go up the basketball court only dribbling with your right hand. You got to use some left and stuff in there too.
Yeah. I hear you, my man. Do you have any regrets from the show, things you would have done differently?
Yeah, I would have, sounds kind of sketch, but I would have isolated myself just a little bit more so that I could really focus on and kind of stay into what I was doing and not letting the outside distractions, other people saying this and that and trying to sway what I had trained when I got there. I had a good talk with Mark Smith about, the defense and the rules and everything like that. And he really kind of helped me see where I can improve my defensive technique. And honestly, like that's what I was hoping from the coaching, right? Was just a better understanding of the rules some like little tips and things like that. And I don't think I really got that.
Gotcha. You bring up the coaching standpoint. We've heard some people say the coaching has been very, very paramount, helps them get motivated and jacked up. Do you think we're ever going to see a time where those coaches are, selected or appointed by the striker and it becomes much more personal like we see in MMA?
I think that may be like a better route to take. You know what I mean? Because I'm sure with the coaches, there were some disagreements from some people. But what I'm liking to see is maybe more training from those coaches. So it doesn't matter who gets picked as a coach. It needs to be somebody that can pass on some sort of knowledge and experience. And I think Trujillo did a pretty good job at that. And you can see he did get the win with more wins through, the series with the coaches. And that definitely says something towards him as a reflection, of his coaching tips and tools that he could have been giving his athletes compared to, the blue team compared to the black team.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously you went through this entire experience. I'm sure you've learned a lot, things that you're changing and adjusting. So talk to me, my man. What are you doing now so that you can get a different outcome next time we see you up there on stage?
Oh, bro. Big changes. Definitely focus more on like power training. There's a lot of guys that are like, yeah, working out in the gym, but there's like strength training that they're doing, which is going to make you a little bit slower. And then like hypertrophy training, which is really only going to make you look good, but it's not going to give you the power that you need to deliver a good strike, right?
Man, well, where have I gone the last 20 years? That's all I've been doing, my man.
Oh, dude, get up there, man. Let's see that striking power then, huh? No, but seriously though, man, really focusing on the power training and that aspect of like really trying to move fast. I'm not moving as much weight, like before I would deadlift like 600 pounds, honestly, in more of a powerlifting style. But now I'm doing things like throwing medicine balls, 10-pound medicine balls, really just trying to get as fast as I can, working on like my torso twist and rotation of my hips. And I think that adding those things with the highlights and the film that I've been watching of every other striker and stuff like that, kind of picking little pieces to add to my slap technique, I think that's going to make a huge difference up there.
Yeah. I mean, you have a very, the biomechanics of your strike is very different than other people. I think we talked about it last time. We talked about the loading technique and then the explosion out of that, fully contracted state, I guess.
Yes.
Are you still going to stick with that, or are you trying to modify a little bit to that technique you've seen?
There is a little slight modification, like because I'm adding variations into my slaps. Like I think I should have a tool bag of slaps. You know what I mean? Like just like in boxing, you got uppercuts, jabs, straight cross, all those. I think that in slap fighting, we should have a tool bag, right? A little combination, so to speak, of slaps. So you will see one that looks exactly the same as the one that I did. And that will be for one type of strike, right? But then you'll see some different types of strikes, right? Where I'm trying to produce a different result, right? Where I'm trying to maybe strike at a slightly different angle. And I think that's the thing that I was really missing before. I was only focusing on one strike, but there's multiple strikes.
Yeah. I'm just thinking here for a second. So, the strong men that do deadlifts, the Brian Shaws of the world, etc. Typical deadlift, in competition is usually straight up and down. But you notice some of these strong men, they utilize, essentially a roll in. They start further away and they roll the bar into their shins as they lift, and they use that movement. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, that slight momentum to set into their deadlift technique, then lift up.
Correct. Is there a way to utilize that into the biomechanics of your slap?
There is. Obviously, we're thinking more rotationally, right? Because we're not going straight up and down. But there's only a certain amount that our torso, our thoracic spine, the mid back of our spine area will rotate, right? There's only a certain amount we can rotate. So think of that as that's your setup, right? That's where you're getting the power from. Maybe it's like right here, right?
Yeah.
As you start rolling over, or as you swing back a little bit more and then rotate into it, there's a certain point of it that's it's momentum, and then you're going into your technique.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
100%. 100%. Did you see Luke Simons last night?
Yeah, for sure.
So did you see that his ass was almost hitting his heels when he was stopping?
Yes.
So he was using a very low technique, in regards to having that momentum prior to coming up. For a guy like yourself, obviously it might be a little bit more difficult in terms of flexibility and stuff like that. And we see him very early on. Jules Scott actually as well. If you look back at Road to the Title season 1, had a very like Mike Tyson-esque strike where he almost had his hand on the ground in like a very windmill-like approach to it. And so I think, as you're talking about getting that rotational aspect into it and, utilizing, what you do to utilize the contraction of all the muscles pre-strike, I think is actually incredibly important. I think and one of the most underappreciated things actually potentially as well is that when you do have that slight pause, it also creates deception of timing. So when somebody is there clinching, they don't know when it is coming. And, if, you could be going on half a second, it could be a second and a half, it could be 2 seconds. And so when you deliver that, obviously someone will fatigue. The longer they sit there and clinch, the more they're going to fatigue as well. And there could be definitely an opportunity to catch them when they may not be in their fullest, defensive position that they want to be also.
You're talking about the strategy, bro. And I'm so glad that you brought that up, because most of the time people look at it and they're like, look at these two motherfuckers just slapping each other on stage and ha, 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 it's silly and stuff like that, right? But until you get into the sport and you start really analyzing what each person is doing, there is a strategy. There's a technique to it. And when I did my first strike, it looks like I paused, right? But really, as I started winding back more, I just went slower, so that at some point I can just rotate because I just went on one,
100%.
right? So as my windup looks the same on one, then I'm good to go, right? So I wouldn't say that's a loophole in it, but I think it's more of a strategy. There's strategy, there's technique, there's timing, there's biomechanics, there's power. There's so many things that go into the sport other than just swinging your hand around.
Yeah. What's your thought on placement? Because I've talked to a lot of MMA guys and they talk about, generating all that power to one spot. So meaning there are certain situations where you want to follow through, and there's certain situations when you want to stop and unleash all that power on one spot. So, a prime example is if you can catch a fighter leaning in,
right?
You don't want to follow through. You want to bring all that power and stop at the point of contact.
Right.
Do you think we're going to see kind of an evolution in this sport? Because we see some people that want to push all the way through, and we see some people that utilize, and I hate to say it, more of the guys that are typically that borderline palm striker type of athlete. I don't know a better way to describe it, seem to utilize that placement of generating all that power into the chin on the point of contact. From your educational side, can you bring any credence or clarity to, either side of these solutions and where one or the other could make sense?
So if I understand you right, basically what type of strike kind of and the placement of the strike?
So I'm saying, obviously we want to transfer energy from, your strike to your opponent.
Correct.
So look at it this way. It's either, are we going to try to generate all that energy and power and have it stop here?
I got you.
Into here. Or are we going to try to go boom all the way through and generate that power this way?
I got you. I would say that when you talk about those kind of things, that's when I was talking about the tool bag, right? Having these different kind of strikes. And think of like certain sports like baseball or golf, right? There's going to be a huge amount of like follow through, right? But in certain punches, like you said, you might bomb, right? Hit that impact and pull back, right? Depending on what you need. And I think that, well, it will depend on how that athlete develops their tool bag. If they only focus on one strike, right? Then yeah, it may be the pop, boom. And I think of that one as like more of like a stinger or something like that, like like you're trying to jolt that person real quick, right? As opposed to
like a jab versus a hook. I guess that's probably
exactly, like a jab versus a hook. And that's why I said having those combinations, those different type of, like, it makes it so that when you go up there and you look at someone's defense, right? Because that's what you have to do. You can't just go up there and be like, oh, I'm gonna hit this motherfucker as hard as I can. You might want to look like, how is he set up, right? Like, how is he holding his body, right? Is he like leaning to this side like this? Is he kind of like tucked down like this? Because if that's the case, then I might need to change my strike for a little different, right, approach, right, depending on which way I'm trying to move that person.
Totally. I like to reference the quote from Ryan Phillips. The only strike I need is the one that puts you on your ass.
Even him, he says that. I'm sure he's got, I've watched a couple of his. He's got a couple different strikes in there. So him.
100%. I mean, we talked all about the offense. Talking about the defense, because obviously it's one thing to be able to absorb it as well. We see guys, Darius early on, Waylon Frost, utilize the rollout. We've seen some guys are perfecting it now. Even last night we've seen, I'll say, Amir with the flinch, but we're seeing different guys try to utilize different technique with a bit more of a head dip. Obviously we all know the dangers that come along with that, but do you think the sport has progressed, or is it maybe still lagging a little bit in the minds of the guys on the defensive side on how to absorb the strikes up there?
I think it's definitely still a disconnect. It's lagging a bit. We're seeing like guys, I feel like, not really working on defense as much as striking. And I mean, we know defense wins championships, right? So you're going to make sure, like for me, I am hyper fixated on my defense, like working my neck in different vectors, different angles, different sides with dumbbells, right? Some resistance bands. Sometimes I just have someone take a towel, right, and push down on the side of my head while I'm laying on the side, and I'm hitting different points. And when it comes to placement, right, and that's like the real big point that I kind of want to talk about as far as defense goes. Like if you think about the head kind of like a flag, right, and this is the flagpole, and as you get further away, that's like the tip of the flag, right? Yeah. So essentially, our chin is kind of set up in a similar structure, right? Like a flag. And if you hit closer to the pole, right, you're not going to get a real good rotation on that spin. You're not going to really send that flag around that pole, right? But if you hit the tip of that pole, or you hit the tip of that flag just right on that tip spot, boom, that shit spins around like a motherfucker, right? So that's kind of the concept behind when we're striking and when we're actually having to defend, right? You need to make sure that you're training your neck in different angles, right? Like that tip of flag, because if you're getting hit up, down, left, right, like you'll have to be able to defend in every angle.
Totally.
So some of these guys are kind of missing that, especially if you're just doing like neck raises like this, you know what I'm saying? And laterals like this, you're missing, there's the gaps.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing like when you go to the circus and when you have the hammer and you hit the leverage and it sends the thing up to the bell. Yeah. The closer to that pinion you hit, the less power you get. The further to the tip you get, the more leverage point, the higher the projectile on the other side also goes.
And that's a good analogy, because now people will see like this is like a golf level sport, right? You're taking a ball and putting it in a tiny sized hole, right? With elite accuracy, proficiency, and power, right? Like when you are striking, the error for margin is like you're hitting like, a little tiny button. once you get outside that button and stuff like that, that's more where you're into clubbing styles.
Yeah, absolutely, man. All right, dude. What can we see from you next? Do you have anything in the works? Anything in the plans? Have you talked to the brass of Power Slap?
Man, I send out I send out a little message every now and then. I say, hey man, I appreciate you guys. I'm available. And I leave it at that. I'm not really trying to bug them. And honestly, it just gives me more time to train. I feel like the more time I have to train, the more prepared I'm going to be. And if they want like real athletes that are dedicated and are really like trying to make this a sport like I know that it could be, then yeah, I know I'm going to get a call at some point, man.
Yeah. Well, where are you at again? What part of the country?
Oh, I'm in Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure if you've seen it or not, but Dana did confirm that they're going to Miami in 2025 at the Fontainebleau.
Oh yeah. Send me on that one, man.
just down the street from you, my man.
Yeah, that would be fun. Yeah. I like the water.
Yeah. Awesome, dude. I appreciate you. Appreciate all your knowledge, all of your insight. You always have a home here at Slap News, and we hope to see you up there. If not a Power Slap 9, possibly Power Slap 10 coming up in December in Las Vegas. Or, I mean, I'm sure you'd love to go to Saudi Arabia as well in January. So we've got lots of opportunity to get you guys back and fresh.
Either one, this year, next year, it doesn't matter. I'm here. Make sure you follow me, Jinx SA. If you want to know about slap training, what it takes to be a slap athlete, and more information like that, I'm here.
Awesome. Take care, man. We'll talk soon.
Yep.